Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavad Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Bhashyakritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmedi Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Let us read the first verse. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Imam Vivasvate Yogam Proktavanahamavyayam Vivasvan manave praha Manurikshvakave bravid. Lord Krishna says, Imam Avyayam Yogam Aham Vivasvate Proktavan. I taught this imperishable yoga to Vivasvan. And we said Vivasvan means sun, Aditya. Vivasvan taught Vivasvan, Manave Praha. Vivasvan in turn passed on the same knowledge to his son Manu. Manu Ikshvaka Abraved, and in turn Manu passed this knowledge on to his son Ikshvaka. As we said, that Bhagavad Gītā is universal knowledge, but it is presented in the Indian context. That's why we have these names and things like that. But the idea is these are all the names of very prominent Kshatriya kings. As we said, Ikshvaku was the first in the Ikshvaku dynasty, and there so Lord Krishna means to say that in the beginning of the creation, I taught or passed on this very same knowledge to son or Hiranyagarbha or Brahmaji, and who passed it on to his son, and so on. Why does Lord do that? This knowledge is for the protection of the world actually. How is the world protected? The world is protected when the society is protected. What protects the society? It is dharma, the righteousness that protects the society. How does righteousness or dharma, how does it protect the society? Because when people in general follow dharma, they perform their duties, they do what is right thing to do. Then generally, when you, as we said, when you perform your duties, my duty becomes your right, and your duty becomes my right. If, for example, I perform my duties to my parents, then in my performance of duty, the needs of my parents are first, and my needs have to be set aside if they are not in agreement with those needs. In duty, you always give greater importance to need of the one to whom you are performing duty. In that process, it is possible that you will set aside your own needs. This is what duty calls for. Therefore, duty often calls for letting go of one's own likes and dislikes, one's own convenience or comfort, in order to assure the comfort or convenience of someone else. So when you say that, the student has a duty towards the teacher, then student does whatever he can do for the comfort of the teacher. And for giving comfort to the teacher, he may himself accept the discomfort. The teacher also has his own duty towards students, of course. So whoever performs the duty is a giver, and for whom the duty is performed is a receiver. So when a student performs duty towards the teacher, then student is a giver and teacher is a receiver. If teacher also performs his duty towards student, then teacher is the giver, student is the receiver. Thus, what is meant by dharma is that all the members of the society, all members of family, and all members of society are related to each other by the bond of duty. So everybody performs a duty. As I said, my duty becomes your right, and your duty becomes my right. And therefore, if everybody follows the spirit of duty, then everybody's rights are automatically taken care of. In a duty-based society, when I perform my duty towards you, and then your rights are taken care of. And when you perform your duty towards me, then my rights are taken care of. It's a duty-based society. Other is a right-based relationship, where everyone claims their rights, in which case nobody's rights will be protected. Because I also claim right, you also claim your rights, and claiming rights only brings conflict. Because in claiming rights, there is always demand involved. I place demands upon others to fulfill my rights, they place demands upon me to fulfill their rights, and thus nobody likes to fulfill other people's demands, and thus this right-based relationship always brings about conflict. A duty-based relationship brings about harmony. Therefore, the Vedic society was a society based on structure around duty, sense of duty. If everybody follows a duty, then I said, everybody's rights are taken care of, and nobody feels exploited or hurt. As in our body also, different limbs perform their duty. Legs performs their duty, hands performs their duty, all organs and limbs perform their duty. In which case, the rights of all the limbs also is taken care of. Because when my leg gets hurt, whole body comes to its rescue. Then it becomes the duty of rest of the limbs to help that one. If something happens to hand, then the rest of the body also comes. This is how there is a harmony, there is a cooperation and harmony between different limbs and organs of the body. So imagine society also consisting of different kinds of people. And the people were, as you know, classified in this chapter itself, Lord Krishna will say, when we will discuss that, as Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. It's not that the Vedas in fact created this caste, but then this caste exists in all societies. What is meant by caste is that people with different dispositions are always there in the society. There are some who are sattvic or pure in nature and therefore contemplative in nature, and those who love for learning and teaching, and those who love for Ishvara and worship, one kind of people. Others are called Kshatriyas, where Rajoguna is predominant, followed by Sattva, where there is love for activity, at the same time love for service. Third are Vaishyas, where the Rajas is predominant, followed by Tamas. There, the person is very active, but there is also some self-centeredness. And finally are the Shudras, where the Tamas is predominant. And so, depending upon the disposition, if each one gets to do what is compatible to their disposition and aptitudes and capacities, then there is a harmony between the person and the task that the person has to perform. If everybody does what they are expected to do, then there is harmony. So that is why a society gets protected when dharma gets protected. But dharma, the duty, requires somebody to teach. And so this dharma is in fact taught by first of all setting an example. Leaders should set example of following dharma in their own life, and then also help other people follow dharma. This is job of Kshatriya. So Kshatriya, the warrior, they are the leaders of the society, and therefore they are assigned the task of protecting dharma in the society. And the way they do that is they themselves live a life of dharma, they themselves live a life of righteousness and worship, and make other people also do that because they are in the position of power. The power is utilized for the well-being of the society. If there are elements that have a tendency to violate the dharma, then they are brought into a line. So as we say, this administration involves nigraha and anugraha. Sometimes you restrain somebody when they are straying from the path of righteousness. You encourage others who are following the path of righteousness. This is how the Kshatriyas administer society. They are the king class. Therefore, here it is said that this knowledge was imparted to Kshatriyas. Knowledge was imparted to kings. But then Kshatriyas are, then if Kshatriyas have the power. If power is combined with righteousness, then that power becomes a blessing to the society. If the power is not combined with righteousness, then that very power also can become a source of harassment to the society. And we have examples of both. We have examples of very noble and righteous kings who protected the societies and the societies prospered under their rules. We also have examples of kings who were not righteous. Under their hands people suffered. Both these examples are there. So here it is said that this Vivaswan and Manu and Ikshvaku, all these are Kshatriyas, Kshatriya kings. So Lord Krishna says that this knowledge was first passed on to Kshatriya kings, the warriors, the leaders, so that first they are protected, meaning that when they know what the reality is, what the truth is, when they know that, then their life becomes an exemplary life. And what the Kshatriyas do is, Kshatriyas protect the rest of the society. Particularly protect Brahmanas. Brahmanas are the people who, as we said, have a natural love for learning and teaching. So Brahmanas they perform the task of learning the scriptures and teaching others. Brahmanas also perform the rituals and officiate the rituals. Therefore, dharma, in terms of knowledge and in terms of religious practices, is upheld by Brahmanas, and dharma, in terms of righteousness and protecting society, is upheld by Kshatriyas. So when the power of Kshatriyas is accompanied with the wisdom and culture, then that power becomes a blessing to the rest of society. The Kshatriyas protect the Brahmanas, and between the two of them, they they perform and propagate dharma, and that's how dharma, the righteousness, or the principle of duty becomes established in a given society, and that's how the society is protected. Because basically it is a job of Lord or Ishvara to protect the creation. He is not only a creator, he is also the protector. And so it is not enough that Ishvara created the world and just let it on its own. No. He created the world, at the same time also made arrangements so that there will be harmony and prosperity in the world. And that harmony and prosperity can be there when there is dharma, when there is duty, when people then perform their duty, then everybody is in harmony with everybody else. And so Lord Krishna says that I imparted this knowledge to Vivaswan, to Manu, to Ikshvaku, for the protection of Kshatriyas and Brahmanas, and through them for the protection of the rest of the society, for the protection of the world. We also said, Avyayam, this is imperishable yoga. We discussed last night why this yoga, the knowledge, is imperishable, because its source is in Vedas, which are imperishable, and it gives rise to the result in the form of moksha, which is also imperishable. Because moksha is my own nature. The self is imperishable, and moksha is the very nature of the self. Therefore, moksha also is imperishable. Therefore, this knowledge is said to be imperishable because of its source as well as because of its result. Then, continuing, another important thing is that this knowledge was passed on. When Manu got the knowledge, then he passed it on to his son, thank God. When Ikshvaku got the knowledge, he also passed on. Suppose they did not pass on this knowledge. Because spiritual capitalists, the fellows keep on, aggrandizing and then don't pass it on. Then this tradition or succession will discontinue. Fortunately, that did not happen. So in the second verse, Lord Krishna says, Evam parampara praptam imam rajarshayo viduhu sakale neha mahata yogo nashtah parantapa. Evam, in this manner, parampara praptam. So this knowledge which was handed down in succession. Parampara, succession. Succession of what? Succession of teacher and the students. Here we also see succession of father and son. So very often in the Vedic tradition, we find the examples of father being the teacher and son being the disciple. There are many examples where father is the teacher and son is the disciple. Bhrugurvai varunhi varunam pitaram upasasara. Bhrigu was the son of Varuna. He approached his father Varuna seeking knowledge. So there, Varuna the teacher also is father and Bhrigu the disciple is a son. So also with Uddalaka and Shvetaketu, father and son. Here also this knowledge was passed on from my father to the son. So this is how it used to be. There were no separate, there were pathshala, there was no separate Sunday school like things, Because every home was a school. And the father or the parents passed on the knowledge and the traditions to the children. And that is how this tradition was protected and was perpetuated. So therefore there was no need for children to go to separate school. Although those days the very teaching was the teaching of Vedas. Meaning that when a child went to Gurukulam, went to live with the teacher, to learn from the teacher, the teacher imparted them knowledge of Vedas. Because that was the syllabus. Veda was the syllabus. So automatically they got the knowledge of the whole tradition and dharma. Evam parampara praptam evam rajarshayo viduhu. Here Arjuna, in the olden days, this knowledge was in the hands of rajarshis. The one who is Raja as well as Rishi is called Rajarshi. Rishi means a sage. Raja means a king. So those who were royal sages or sagely kings. So those kings were sagely kings. So who is the king? The king is the one who has the power. And who is a sage? Sage is the one who has purity. So sage enjoys a purity of mind and therefore also enjoys the capacity to grasp the subtle meaning of the scriptures. It is one thing to recite the scriptures, second thing to know the meaning grammatically, is the third thing to know the subtle meaning of the passages. So yesterday all the priests recited the passages. That's recital. Second stage is that you know the literal meaning of what you are reciting. That's a great thing. And third is you know what's the purport, not just the literal meaning, but what is the truth that is conveyed through those passages. And therefore, the person who really is benefited is the one who knows the import, the purport, the subtle meaning of the Vedic passages. So he is called a Rishi. Rishi is one who possesses an intellect which has that purity, which has the contemplativeness, which has a focus, because of which that person is able to grasp the subtle meaning of the Vedic passages. Because that's the kind of intellect you need in order for you to gain the knowledge of the self. You can imagine it requires the purity of mind as well as the single focus of the mind, then alone it is possible to gain this knowledge. Therefore, these kings are qualified as Rajarshis. Not just the kings, but they were also Rishis or sages. So you can call them the kingly sages or sagely kings. Better is that they were sagely kings. Therefore, they were the fit persons. A kshatriya may not necessarily be a fit person to receive the knowledge if he doesn't have the adequate purity of mind. And a brahmana is fit to receive knowledge, he doesn't have the power. You require also the strength, which is when you can command the respect of other people, and that is when you can create impact upon others, and that is when the knowledge spreads. To learn, you require the purity of mind. But to spread the knowledge, you require a certain inner strength and missionary spirit and a capacity to create, an impact upon other people. So that's what a king does. King possesses that capacity by which he can create an impact upon others, meaning that his words will be taken very seriously by others. At the same time, he is a sage and therefore he knows the truth. Imam Rajarshayo Viduhu. Here Arjuna, in the olden times, this knowledge was in the hands of Rajarshis, in the hands of sagely kings. That also shows in a way how valuable or how precious this knowledge is. When something is perceived by important people, then it becomes very important, So Maharshi Mahesh Yogi will gain great prominence when beetles become their disciples, So then, because beetles are of course very highly respected, are very popular. When they become his disciples, naturally he gains a certain stature. So many of the Indian Swamis thus gained the stature because they had very prominent disciples. Film actors, film stars, some billionaires, some political figures, whatever. So you see here, as far as Brahma Vidya is concerned, as far as self-knowledge is concerned, who are the people who have devoted their life in pursuit of this knowledge? None other than these great kings. In the history, these kings of Ikshvaku and others are very well known for their prowess, for their righteousness, for their generosity. So these people, and you can imagine how pursuing this knowledge is really a lifetime commitment. It is not that it just takes place in 6 months or 2 years or whatever it is, it does, but then you have to really assimilate it, which is a lifetime process. Which means that these great kings must have devoted their entire life to pursue this knowledge. That is a way of showing, highlighting the importance or value of the knowledge. So very often we find the scriptures themselves praise the knowledge. Like Mundaka Upanishad says, how the Brahma Vidya first was imparted by Brahma, the creator, to his son Atharvana. And he passed it on to his son, to his disciple, and to Haradvaja, Angi, and so forth. So great sages were involved. So when these great people have thought this knowledge is so important, then the ordinary people understand that this is a very precious knowledge, this is a very valuable knowledge. So that purpose also is served by saying that this knowledge gain also an acceptance by these great kings. Then what happened? Sakale mahata yogo nashtah parantapa. Saha kalena, owing to a long lapse of time, mahata kalena, owing to a lapse of long, so long lapse of time. Yoga nashtaha parantapa. Hey Parantapa, hey Arjuna, this yoga was lost. Nashtaha, it disappeared. Meaning that this line of succession was snapped. What it means is that the knowledge doesn't get destroyed, as we say. Knowledge always is there. Whether you know it or not, knowledge always is there, for knowledge is neither created nor does it get destroyed, because it's a reality. Whether they knew the law of gravity or not, it was always there. And suppose mankind forgets it, it still will be there. So the fact that everything is Brahman is a fact, whether we know it or not. And suppose everybody forgets, is ignorant, still that knowledge always will be there. But what is important is not the knowledge really, but those who are the wise people who have that knowledge. And another thing that is important is that these wise people also should pass on this knowledge. Therefore, there must be a succession of the Guru Shishya, or the teacher-disciple succession must be there. Then alone the knowledge will be passed on. As is happening, for example, in the present generation in India, that this succession is broken. Because the parents right now, they themselves are not, they don't have any knowledge, or much knowledge of the tradition. And that being the case, they cannot pass it on to their own children. And that's how this succession becomes snapped or broken. So Lord Krishna says, this happened with Brahma Vidya. This happened with the knowledge of Brahman or knowledge of self. That because of the long lapse of time, slowly and slowly, the tradition or the succession got snapped. Why would it get snapped? Because you did not have the qualified people. The knowledge can be gained only by a person who has gained the eligibility or qualification. Vedanta teaches that one should have what we call the fourfold qualification to really qualify for gaining this knowledge. You should have Viveka, Vairagya. The dispense Viveka. The life requires Viveka or discernment. Vairagya, a dispassion. What Viveka or discrimination or discernment enables me to do is to recognize what is important in my life, what the purpose of my life is, and what the means of achieving that purpose is, that understanding is called viveka. What is the purpose of my life and how to achieve that purpose, that understanding is called viveka. Thus, as we say, when we are traveling on the road, then what the destination is and which is the path leading to destination, that understanding is called viveka. But then, in order to reach the destination, we have to also, even when we know that this is the right path, to pursue what is right requires us to keep under control our temptations. Because even as you are traveling, you might see a very beautiful road. This is scenic route, scenic overlook. Some kind of a digression can be there. Something looks very pretty. Oh, there is a nice restaurant here. Oh, that looks like good park. There is nice lake, whatever. So many distractions may be there on the way. And if you fall for those distractions, then it is possible that you will never reach your destination. It's not enough that we have the knowledge of the goal and the path, but also there must be a commitment to stay on the path and overcome any temptations and distractions which may come on the way. Because the mind has such a habit. It falls for distractions, falls for temptation. Okay. I know I have to study, exam is coming after 15 days. No, but there's a very good movie this evening, Oh, my friend is getting married. Oh, this restaurant is good, this is, the food is good. And like this, many things are there. And if you allow yourself to go through all that stuff, it's possible that you did not have enough time to study and then, pass the test. And this happens in life. The story of that king is well known. This king once declared that on a given day, I will be available to all the people of the town who can come to me and present their request and ask for whatever they want. The appointed day was appointed day came. There was a very big garden in the center of the city. And in the garden there was a hill. On that there was a very beautiful house. So king said that I'll spend the whole day in that house, from morning till evening. You come along and ask for whatever you want. Naturally, all the citizens, they all lined up right in the morning. The gates of the garden are open, and with all great enthusiasm people enter. But then, what do they find? Oh, the first is it's a nice coffee shop and pizza shop and this shop and that shop. So okay, let's first, let's have some coffee, let's have some nice food. Then you go to video parlors are there, and some other entertainments are there, movie theaters are there, IMAX is there, this is there, all kinds of things are on the way. Let us have this. Amusement parks are there, rides are there. And so people say, let us enjoy this before we reach there, let us enjoy that. And that's how the whole day was spent, just in enjoyment. And not a single person made it to the king. And so this is also important, that not only should we know, first of all we should know where the destination is and what the road leading to destination is. If you have wrong information about destination, then you may travel long distance and not reach that. It is not enough that we are traveling fast, but then we should be traveling in the right direction in life. And secondly, even after having understood what the destination road is, we have to always keep under check our temptations, our likes and dislikes. Thus, other roads, I'm dispassionate. I'm not interested in other roads because I know that they do not lead to my destination, and a commitment to the path that is leading to my destination. That's called vairagya. So a commitment to what I have to achieve and a dispassion or a detachment from everything else. So viveka, vairagya. So these are these qualifications. This kind of frame of mind is required to gain the knowledge. What happens is that when a society follows the life of dharma, then there is prosperity in the society. Then there are comforts. Then there are pleasures. Then there are temptations. And it is then people slowly become prey to these temptations and the urge for pleasure. And their capacity to maintain self-control and discipline, that capacity slowly becomes weakened. And therefore, this viveka and vairagya and the samadhi shatka sampatti, tranquility of the mind, the self-control, all this capacity is slowly wane. And this you find, in course of time, you do not get the qualified people to be able to receive this knowledge. So this is what the time does. The time always has this nature, that the time always impacts upon dharma, the righteousness. And if something is not done, then indiscipline, unrighteousness will slowly creep into the society. And this is what happens. So Lord Krishna says, Sakale neha mahata, mahata kalena, on account of the long lapse of time. And what kind of time? Time which brings about a deterioration in the people's commitment to values, and the people's discipline, and the people's self-control. Yogo nastah parantapa, hey parantapa, hey Arjuna, this yoga, meaning this succession of the teacher and the students, it got broken, it got snapped. Meaning the scriptures are there, knowledge is there, but it's not available because there is nobody to communicate to you. Even if there is somebody to communicate, there is nobody fit enough to in fact to receive that knowledge also. Alright, so that is so. So what? What does it matter? Suppose this knowledge is not available, okay. But then, if this knowledge is not there, the person can never really gain success in his life. The Purushartha means the end that is sought by a human being, can only be fulfilled or met with this knowledge and in no other way. What is this knowledge? Knowledge is very simple. That you are limitless, that's the knowledge. That you are free. You are what you are seeking to be. This is what Vedanta teaches us. So simple, and still it is so difficult. What's the problem in my accepting and my owning up this knowledge that I am limitless? Who doesn't like that? If you are told that you are limitless, you are a complete being, you are whole, you are beautiful, you are great, everybody would love that. And still, what a great difficulty it is on my part to understand this and to assimilate it. Because my complex that I am a small, limited being is so strong, that wiring is so hard, that in spite of being told again and again, somehow it does not sink in. And if people therefore continue to take themselves to be limited and needy, then naturally there is going to be a selfishness, and because people feel small, insecure, selfish, and that is what will prevail in the society, then there is going to be conflict. You will find a lot of conflicts in the society when this knowledge is not there. So recognizing that people are in fact deprived of the goal of their life in absence of this knowledge. Therefore, Lord Krishna says, I found it necessary to again revive this tradition. This tradition of succession which was snapped on account of the passage of time, Lord Krishna says, my purpose of taking incarnation is to revive that tradition, to again establish this knowledge and establish dharma. That's what he said in the third verse. So Lord Krishna says, Sa evayam maya tedya Yoga proktah puratanaha Bhaktosi me sakha cheti Rahasyam hyetaduttamam. sa eva ayam yogaha maya sayam eva puratana yogaha maya te adya proktaha. Here Arjuna, that very same ancient yoga, that very same ancient knowledge which I first imparted to Vivaswan and was coming down in the lineage of the sages, of which that succession got snapped because of the absence of qualified teachers and qualified students, that very same knowledge, because Arjuna may think that the ancient yoga or the ancient knowledge, because that succession is snapped, is gone, and maybe Lord Krishna is now imparting me something else. That is also possible. The ancient knowledge is gone because there are no teachers and students, and maybe Lord Krishna is imparting to Arjuna today something new. Therefore Lord Krishna assures him, that's not so. Saeva, that very same yoga, that very same knowledge, Arjuna, I have imparted to you today. Why? Because Arjuna is adhikari, because he is an eligible student. Bhaktosime sakhacheti rahasyam hetaduttamam. See, Lord Krishna has to choose a disciple who not only has the capacity to receive the knowledge, but also has the capacity to pass on this knowledge. That is why Kshatriya is chosen. Arjuna is a very strong person. At the moment he may be overcome with grief, that is a different matter. Basically very strong in character, because he has lived a life of dharma, lived a life of righteousness. And he enjoys also a straightforwardness and a purity of the heart. And he also enjoys the power and capacity. Therefore, when knowledge is passed on to someone like that, then through him, that knowledge also will spread. So that is why perhaps Lord Krishna has been waiting for an opportunity to arise when he can impart that knowledge. I am sure Lord Krishna knew that Arjuna always needed this knowledge. But so far, Arjuna never asked for it. And they say that you should not give out this thing unless they ask for it. Only when person asks for it, then it is clear that the person is a value for this. And you should give only anything. You should only give to the person who is a value for that. Otherwise there is no point. What is it? You cannot throw your gems to the swine, so whatever, So you should not, in life also, not only anything. When you give to somebody, you should give to the person who has a value for it. Otherwise, it's meaningless. Sometimes your enthusiasm, you give somebody precious, what you think is precious to somebody, what is this? It doesn't care. There's no value. And so also the knowledge that you pass on should be passed on to someone who has a value. And how do you know he has a value? When he asks for it. Arjuna asked for that. Meaning that today he discovered a value for this knowledge. He always needed it, but he did not know that he needed it. Today he recognized he needed that, he recognized that it is very valuable. And then he is all ready to grasp or receive it. Therefore, Adya today, here Arjuna, in this battlefield, the very same yoga or very same knowledge, which is the means of moksha, which is the means of achieving the purushartha, the goal sought by every human being. Because we find that in absence of this knowledge, in absence of viveka and vairagya or discernment and dispassion, in absence of that, we find people pursuing all kinds of things in the world. We find how people are going astray and therefore are deprived of the benefit of gaining a human life. Human life is the most precious embodiment life that one can have, and it is meant for gaining a very precious end. And we find that people are squandering or whiling away this time and pursuing useless things and wasting the time and suffering unnecessarily in the process. Therefore it is so important that this lineage or this succession must be re-established so that the society has the benefit of the knowledge. So that's one way of protecting society. As we said, the Lord who has created the universe also has his duty to protect it. And therefore, as a teacher, he protects it also. So that is why in all the kindness the Lord reveals the scriptures. And not only reveals the scriptures, but then he passes on the scriptural knowledge to the eligible students. So there is a verse which says, Yo Brahmanam vidadhati purvam, Yo ve vedam sip prahinoti tasmai. The one who first of all creates Brahmaji, the firstborn, and passes on the knowledge of Vedas to the Brahma. And then Brahma will pass on to others. Thus, the Lord, being the well-wisher of all the beings, recognizes that the people's well-being will be assured only when they have the right understanding of their life, only when they have the right direction in their life. Particularly human beings need that. Because they said the human beings are endowed with the freedom of choice. Therefore, human being has a freedom to decide what he wants to do or not. And that freedom, only when it is properly, wisely utilized, then the freedom will become a source of blessing. If that freedom is unwisely utilized or abused, then that freedom will bring about his own damage. Meaning that human being can help himself or hurt himself also. Therefore, he needs directions, he needs guidelines, and for that purpose the scriptures are there. The Vedas are there, which give you the guidelines in forms of do's and don'ts. Do this and do not do that. If you do this, well, that is in your well-being. And don't do that, because if you do it, it will hurt you. So thus, by revealing scriptures also and passing on this knowledge, Lord fulfills his role as a well-wisher of all the human beings, of all the living beings. And that's what Yoga Shastra also says. Saesha purveshapi guruhu kalena anavachchedat. This Lord is purveshapi guruhu. He is a guru, the teacher of the ancient ones also. All the ancient gurus also had a beginning and end. But here is one guru who has no beginning and no end. Therefore, purveshapi guruhu, he is a guru or the teacher of ancient ones also. Kalena anavachchedat, because he is not limited in time. Everybody else is limited in time. So as guru, the Adi Guru also, Lord is a protector of the world. You understand how, in what ways the protection, this business of coming down and taking weapons is the last resort. But primarily, the arrangement is already made so that the human beings have the right direction in their life. And therefore, hey Arjuna, today I have imparted knowledge to you. Because you are Parantapa. Arjuna is Parantapa. One of his names is Parantapa. Parantapayati, one who is scorcher of enemies. One who is scorcher of enemies is called Parantapa. So Arjuna was known as Parantapa because in his very presence the enemies used to shudder. So here, Parantapa, the scorcher of enemies, also means that not only is scorcher of his external enemies, he is also scorcher of his inner enemies. And who are the inner enemies? This Kama, Krodha, Lobha, lust, anger, greed, all these are inner enemies. So Arjuna is Parantapa, one who is the scorcher of inner enemies, and therefore he is a very qualified person. Further, Lord Krishna says in the second line of this verse, Bhakto sime sakhachedi. Because you are Bhakta, you are my devotee. Sakhacha, and by the way, you are also my friend. But important is not friend, devotee. Sakhacha, the chakara shows that the sakha or the friend aspect is not as important as the bhakta or the devotee aspect. Bhakta, because you are my devotee. And you are surrendered to me. And of course you are a friend, therefore you are very dear to me also. So you see, that is why when the father is the teacher and son is the disciple, there is added advantage that father always loves the son. is the dearest to the father. Son is always dearest to the father. And therefore there is added advantage. Arjuna also an added advantage. Not only you are the disciple of Lord Krishna, not only you are the devotee, you also are the friend and therefore enjoy a special affection. Because you are like that, therefore this knowledge has been today imparted to you. But what is wrong, oh Lord? You can give it to anybody. Why not? He says, no, rahasyam hetaduttamam. Understand that this is indeed a profound secret. And therefore, it cannot be passed on to anybody and everybody. It only should be given to one who is eligible or is qualified. As we said, one who has a value for that. One who recognizes how valuable it is. And one who has the capacity to receive that and assimilate that. Also capacity to communicate to others. You being the right person, Arjuna, therefore, today this has been passed on to you. So, Arjuna therefore is a very lucky person, He's very fortunate that Lord Krishna in fact chose him. It looks, we do not know whether it is Arjuna who asked for the knowledge or Lord Krishna really created the situation. Who knows? But the interesting thing is, Arjuna requested Lord Krishna to bring his chariot between the two armies. Arjuna said, I want to survey both the armies. I want to see who are the warriors who are arrayed for fighting and who are the fellows who are helping Duryodhana. I want to see them. So Lord Krishna, as desired by Arjuna, brought the chariot right in the midst of the two armies and then says to Arjuna, Tamuvacha Rushike, so Uvacha Partha Pashetan Samavetan Kuruniti. He Partha, may you see all the Kauravas who are all assembled here. Lord Krishna says, Arjuna, look at all the descendants of Kuru who are all assembled here. There is little mischief in that, the use of that word. If Lord Krishna had said at that time, look at all your enemies who are assembled here, then perhaps Arjuna would have seen enemies there. But Lord Krishna said, look at the Kurus who are assembled here. And then Arjuna saw all the Kurus. Oh, Tatra Pashyasitan Papitum. Then he saw his relatives, his uncles, his cousins, his friends, their sons, their fathers. So that Arjuna saw all people in this manner. Maybe Lord Krishna's words had some suggestion in there. So maybe Lord Krishna created this. And Arjuna therefore experienced a tremendous grief. And maybe that is how he came, he surrendered to Lord Krishna asking for the knowledge. I do not know whether that was intended or not. But anyway, Lord Krishna found a very eligible student, a very fit student in Arjuna. And therefore, today, understand that very same knowledge. Don't think that I am telling you something new. Seva yoga. So three things we are told about this yoga. One is that it is very ancient, coming from the Vedas, and through a succession of teacher and students. Number two, it's a knowledge which gives you the fulfillment of your life because it is conducive of gaining moksha. Thirdly, great people have in fact devoted themselves in pursuit of this knowledge. And fourthly, and Lord Krishna will say who he is. So far he is not told that Lord is telling this knowledge to you. In that way, this knowledge is praised, number one. Number two, it is told here that it is ancient parampara, therefore it is not something new. And therefore, as we discussed yesterday, that it is trustworthy. It is very valuable, absolutely necessary, as well as trustworthy. Then we can have the Shraddha. Then we can have the devotion or commitment to pursue this knowledge. And this is how, in these three verses, Lord Krishna, from his point of view, would have concluded the teaching. But it happens that Arjuna asks a question. And that sets up a whole new line of discussions. But then, so we'll see Arjuna's question in the next verse. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah. Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Guru